everybody please rise for the playing of both cameras. Please be seated. The meaning of the poppies, Mills and Kirk. The meaning of poppies. Somewhere in the world, at this very moment, men and women are at war. In Afghanistan, in the Middle East, fighting the war on terrorism. In Africa, in Asia, in Europe, and on peacekeeping duties all over the world. We are fortunate today that Canada lives in peace. Not so long ago, in World War I and II, Korea, the Gulf War, and Afghanistan, and Bosnia, young Canadians crossed oceans to fight for the right of freedom. At Vimy Ridge, they were scared in the Battle of the Atlantic. They were brave at the Battle of Britain and at Vimy Ridge. They watched each other suffer. They watched each other die on D-Day during the landings at Normandy, France. Before they came home, they buried many of their friends at Dieppe. In time, beautiful red poppies began to grow over their graves. After war, soldiers, airmen, and sailors who came home wore a poppy over their heart in remembrance of all those that never returned home and were left to rest beneath the poppies that grow in Landers Field. Today, we still wear poppies to remember all men and women who have given their lives in all wars and peacekeeping duties around the world. We wear them as reminders of those who died and are still dying while fighting for peace. We wear them as a reminder of the horrors of conflict and the beauty of peace. We must remember, if we do not, the sacrifice of those Canadian lives will be meaningless. They died for us. They died for a collection of traditions they cherished and a future they believed in. They died for Canada. They did for you. As Canadians, we often take granted our current way of life, our freedom. The Canadians that went and still go now in arms to distant lands do so in the belief that such rights and freedoms are being threatened. They truly believe that. Without freedom, there can be no ensuring peace. And without peace, no enduring freedom. Let us remember them, lest we forget.
Talk of trouble is sent through the country. Is that why we have died for thee? And soldiers cry, O Canada, we died to keep you free. And the soldier cries, O Canada, be true and strong for me.
In Flanders Fields, Zach. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow. Between their crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow. Loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Field. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from falling hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold up high, if ye brave faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Field. Reasons to remember, Max and Carson.
For many of us, war is a phenomenon seen through the lens of a television camera or a journalist's account of fighting in a distant part of the world. Our closest physical and emotional experience may be reading a war in a history class or watching a contemporary movie. But even words and images depicting war can seem deeply connected for those of us born during peacetime. All wars seem far removed from our daily lives. The world now is a different place.
We often take for granted our Canadian values, our freedom to participate in cultural and political events, and our right to live under a government of our choice. The Canadians who went off to war in distant lands went in the belief that the values and civil rights enjoyed by Canadians were being threatened.
By remembering their service and their sacrifice, we recognize the traditional freedom these men and women fought to preserve. They believed that their actions in the present would make a significant difference for the future, but it is up to us to ensure that their dream of peace is realized. On Remembrance Day, we acknowledge the courage and sacrifice of those who served our country, and acknowledge our responsibility to work for the peace they fought so hard to achieve.
These Canadian soldiers were men, women, mothers, fathers, daughters, and sons. They faced difficult situations bravely and brought honor to themselves, to their loved ones, and to their country. They were ordinary Canadians who made extraordinary sacrifices. Few of us can understand the individual bravery and sense of purpose among our servicemen and women. Loss of comrades, extreme living conditions, intense training, fear, mental anguish, spiritual and physical hardship illuminate what the individual sailor, soldier, and airman experience in battle.
If tomorrow all things were gone, work no longer late, and I had to start again, just not to remember. Thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands done, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be in Canada, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave their life to me. And I'm glad to stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless you, Canada. From the shores of Nova Scotia to the forests in BC, Montreal to Winnipeg, from sea to shining sea. Detroit, we can see her above the USA. 'Cause there's pride in every Canadian heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be in Canada, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'm glad we stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless you, next to you and defend her till the day. 'Cause there ain't no doubt about this land. God bless you.
Please stand for the last post in the rebellion. You got it.
Mr. Greg Swift will now address the assembly.
Eve and Miles here with us today, and thinking of Keegan. And like so many of my friends that were shown in the pictures earlier, that fell much too young, I should say. We're suffering the pain of Mr. Crow's passing, and he will forever have a place in my heart, and so many of my friends who passed in combat did. Just want to say a few words this morning. First off, I'm honored to be here with Regimental Sergeant Major Len Bone. And I could spend a long time talking about Len's myriad of military accomplishments and achievements. But Len and I share a number of friends in the military, and everyone I talk to has the utmost respect for Mr. Bone. For those that don't know, Mr. Bone was, as I mentioned, a Regimental Sergeant Major, which for a non-commissioned member is the highest rank that is achievable. Mr. Bone was an exceptional soldier, gentleman, and served this country well. And Len, personally, I want to thank you again. I always say to Len, I've got a couple of medals. I don't wear them on Remembrance Day for a few different reasons, but sitting next to Len, who's got a chest full of medals, I'm very proud and thank you for your service. I want to remember that I think in this era of Snapchat, where we're always bombarded by pictures and so on, as we listened to O Canada this morning, you know, we saw the young men and women that were killed in Bosnia. Those were people's sons, daughters, husbands, wives, fathers, mothers. And as I did a little bit of research last night, World War I, 61,000 Canadians, young Canadians were killed, and 172,000 were wounded. In World War II, 45,000 young Canadians' lives were taken, and an additional 55,000 were wounded. In Korea, 516 were killed and thousands wounded. I had the honor, just 2 years after I graduated from Rosseau Lake, so not too much older than many of you here today, to join the military and to serve the country. And I served in the theater of war in 1994, 1995 in Bosnia. And I wanted to read a couple of excerpts from there. We were fortunate that, well, unfortunately, 23 died in the theater of war during the Bosnian conflict, but so many more have died since through the silent killer, which is suicide due to PTSD. Let's read a couple of excerpts. One from Scott Casey. He was a corporal in the Royal Canadian Regiment. He was a platoon commander's driver and also a tow missile gunner and just a regular infantry soldier. He recalls his time there as horrific. Some of the memories still make him grimace. It's not normal for women and children to be murdered in the streets. And you know there was the mother, a daughter, and a son. And all three of them were shot just for carrying water. There's no tactical importance to what they were doing. They were just surviving. I mean, to witness that, I was enraged, number one. Mortified that somebody could even do this sort of thing to children and non-combatants. And I was struggling to try and find some way to rectify the issue. And there was nothing there. I was completely helpless. There were innocent civilians that were being butchered on a daily basis, and for no other reason other than their religion or their ethnicity. It's the reality of what they call the rules of engagement in peacekeeping. We were supposed to be keeping the peace, and as we said, there wasn't any peace to keep. So many of the soldiers left wondering what they have accomplished. While I was there, a platoon of our soldiers were taken captive. This is an excerpt from another group of soldiers that were taken captive. In 1992, Bosnian Serb fighters captured 11 Canadians serving the United Nations military force, lined them up against a wall and opened fire just above their heads. This is the type of trauma that our soldiers faced on a daily basis. And one of the atrocities that I had the misfortune of being part of was on 2 occasions, Canadian soldiers found themselves in hospitals full of patients that had been abandoned by staff due to increased fighting in the area. In one situation, troops found, protected, and gave aid to a large number of mentally and physically challenged patients who needed a very high level of care. one of the deaths, after a month being assigned in Bosnia, Gunther was driving a UN-marked M113 armored personnel carrier in Buci, a village with high tension between Muslims and Croats. It's about 20 kilometers northwest of Sarajevo on June 18, 1993. At 12:40, just 40 minutes after a ceasefire was supposed to start at noon, Gunther stood up to take a look out the front of his APC with his captain and sergeant at the back. The sun was directly overhead as he surveyed the land through binoculars. He saw a line of tracer fire arching across the sky, and when he turned to call out his report, a shot sounded from a nearby building. An anti-tank rocket, most probably an 82 millimeter recoilless rifle, burst through Daniel's chest, and his head was torn from his body. These are the folks that I remember on Remembrance Day. I remember my warrant officer, Mike Peace, who passed away shortly after we returned due to contaminants and exposure that he had suffered in Bosnia. I remember one of my good friends, Captain Mark Walden, who also passed away due to cancer because of his exposure in Bosnia. Canadian soldiers are 2 times more likely to take their lives due to suicide, and we continue to lose troops today due to PTSD and what they've witnessed. Many of my friends also served in Afghanistan, and as you saw today in the photos, we lost 158 members. I remember I was working in Toronto at the time, and we would go to line the streets as the bodies were repatriated to the coroner's office in Toronto. These were fine young Canadian folks who lost their lives. I want to mention a couple that were good friends of mine. Warrant Officer Rick Nolan, who passed away on the 3rd of September 2006 from the Royal Canadian Regiment. Chief Warrant Officer Bobby Gerard, who passed away 27 November 2006, also from the Royal Canadian Regiment. Matthew Daw passed away as part of the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. He was a friend of both Len's and mine. I also want to remember those that gave so much and suffered so much during this time. Several of my friends received the Star of Military Valor, which under the Victoria Cross is the 2nd highest honor that can be bestowed to a military veteran. Major William Hilton Fletcher, who received the Star of Military Valor for his actions in Afghanistan on 18 December 2006. And Major David Quick, who was awarded the Star of Military Valor on 8 January 2008. I welcome everyone to remember the sacrifices that have been afforded us so we can enjoy the beauty, the peace, and the democracy in this amazing country. Thank you.
Mr. Bone will now address the assembly.
Morning. Well, Greg, I'm glad you came here because you helped me start. I don't have to say all these things today. Young dog, well, when he was born, I was there. His mom did not want him to join the service. He had asthma. I'll always remember that. His father says, Len, my sons are all in the army. Get him in there. I said, Peter, I don't want to. He said, come on. And the brothers got on my back and everything else. They're all soldiers. So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. Yeah. I talked to a friend in Ottawa. He said, how bad is it? Asthma? I said, oh, pretty bad. He says, do you want him in? You don't want him in. I said, what can you do? We got him in. And he died. His mom will never forgot me. Forgive me. I've never seen him again. I have a lot of boys that are still dying. My son-in-law is postmaster, so bad. It's unbelievable the way he is. I live with it. And I'm lucky because years ago, when I retired, I came to a certain place called Rosseau College. I was already going down, but a bunch of little girls, little boys drove me crazy. And, and running around everywhere, I was running after them, teaching French to people that didn't really speak French. Then they moved me into the bricks, Mrs. Bone and I. Then we took care of little boys again, and big boys. And they saved my life because I was so busy loving them all that and today I'm still here. And I know one of the reasons I'm here is because people just want me here. I don't know what I would do with all you young ladies and young men. I wasn't going to talk much today. I was going to read a poem. One soldier that died, he was never a soldier from the US. And that's Mr. Crow. We loved each other. I taught him how to salute. Every time he was in his office, I used to salute him. He asked me once, what does officers do when you salute? I said, you have to stand up and salute like that. So once in a while, I'd go through that big window, I'd salute him. He'd have to get up and salute. I'd come back and salute. He'd get up and salute. Drove him crazy. Loved him. I remember the last time I saw him because I met him on the corner like every morning. I met him at 6. He would have been a good soldier. Would have been a good general. Very sad. Today, got a young lady that graduated from here, and she picked a song, Mr. Carroll. And we're going to play this in a few minutes for Mr. Carroll. I've known people 75 years old, never have forgot who they were. And him, I'll never make it to another 150 before I forget him. Maybe we'll meet upstairs. And after this video, if you could still remain, if you could stand up for Amazing Grace, and we'll go through the whole Amazing Grace. And that's for Mr. Curl. We'll walk on Amazing Grace. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, for being here.
Troubles come and my heart burdens me. Then I saved a wretch like me. And I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that turned my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, how I first believed. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior, has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns. Unending love, amazing has promised good to me. His word, my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be. As long as life endures, my chains are gone, I will set free. My God, my Savior, has ransomed me. And love, His mercy grace, unending love, amazing grace. The earth shall soon be so like snow. The sun forbear to shine. My God who called me here will be forever. My chains are set free. My God, my Savior, has ransomed me. His mercy reigns. Unending love, amazing grace. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Thank you, everyone. Please exit.